Okay, so here we have the the banded glute activation exercise. So we'll see many people in the gym doing this, basically placing a band around the knees and you're pushing your knees out to the side as a way of increasing the brain's awareness to the glute med and min. So the glutes on the outside of the pelvis here. This is a great exercise and there's nothing particularly wrong with it. But we've got to think, I'm going to ask you the question now, why would you do this? Why would improving somebody's awareness of the glute med improve their squat pattern? And it's not necessarily because the glute med is weak, but we've got to think about what is actually going on from a holistic perspective. So what's going on globally? In my opinion, this is an okay exercise to do, but we've got to really think about the possible problems we could encounter, but also the reasons why there is, let's say, dysfunction or a kind of instability around the hip, and what specifically the glute med is going to do in this position. So that's the things I want you to think about. Really think about now is what is the purpose of this exercise? A lot of people do it, and it is it's pretty valid. I'd say it's a pretty decent thing to start with. I'd rather people do this than nothing at all. However, is it the most effective thing to do given what is really going on during a dysfunctional squat pattern? So we're going to look at this, and I'm going to just change my position here to this position. And now we're going to look at this. Is there anything you notice about this position here and something we may not be paying attention to? Now, to the naked eye, it looks like a pretty good squat position in regards to the torso, hips, and knee position. However, I've actually intentionally taken myself into excessive lumbar flexion here. Sorry, lumbar extension. So that is an anterior tilt of the hips, so basically kicking my bum out in like so. And what this is doing now is that it's actually, even though we could get into the glutes, we could be working the glute min and med in this region, we've now neglected the spinal position, which is extremely important for the way the hip is going to move in the socket, and so the way the femur is going to go into flexion, extension, external rotation, internal rotation, which is actually the most important thing in a squat pattern. It's not just down to one muscle being able to contract and being strong, it is completely down to the ability of this to stay in one place and be in control and in conjunction with the rib cage whilst the femur moves in the socket. Which begs the question, what else could we do which may be more optimal or more transferable to the squat? Okay, here we have a very simple kettlebell exercise that you can do, or you just need a mat and a kettlebell. I'm using an 8 kilo here, but I'd recommend anything between a 4 and a 6. So what I've done is the kettlebell is just directly over my head. Please be very careful and hold it just slightly above your forehead. What we're going to do is have the elbows, so the arms is about 90 degrees to the torso. And we're going to have the back nice and flat and knees just slightly forward from the hip joint here. Okay. So we're going to blow the air out. That's going to create intra-abdominal pressure. We're going to engage all the deep tissue core musculature. And by that big exhale, as you can see through the pierced lips here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to inhale and we're going to take our feet out to the side. So this is exactly the same movement. We are going to be working those the glute med and minor. Exact same movement as we're doing on our feet. And we're going to bring it back to the center line, and we're going to inhale as we go out and exhale as we bring back to center. Now, this isn't as challenging for the glute med. It's not as challenging as using the band because the band is getting stronger the further the knee gets away. However, in this case, as the knee gets further away, this is actually easier for the glute to contract. So it's actually challenging a lot more to the adductors. However, what are we doing? We are engraining a neutral hip position or perceived neutral hip position where we're integrating this core contraction. So we're integrating spinal stability with the ability to adduct and abduct our knee. So that's an interesting thing. But what else can we do in this position? Well, just like in the squat, you can stand up and down. In this one here, I'm now taking my knee a little bit further away. So in essence, I'm straightening my leg. And as I go into the next rep, I'm going even further where I'm straightening my leg. And the whole time I'm looking to inhale as I go out, exhale as I come in, and really keep my lower abs in as stable position as I possibly can. So I'm straightening my legs fully and keeping everything locked into position, to the position where I go into a full squat think of like a leg press position. Now, the reason why I would opt for this one is because you're making a connection with the brain of how to stabilize the pelvis and keep it in a good position, and go into abduction and adduction of the femur, which is actually something that is, in my opinion, is going to help you with that squat pattern rather than just looking at one single muscle of the glute med minor on its own. However, this on its own, because it's a supine position, you're lying down on your back, probably isn't going to be specific enough in order to get a great response. So what I would do is integrate this with a goblet squat as a 2 exercise back to back, and then you can use this as a way of really great ingraining that squat pattern prior to loading it with a barbell or a kettlebell or a dumbbell or in a machine pattern. So let's have a look at that goblet squat and what I mean by integration. So this is the kettlebell drill, a goblet squat, which pretty much everybody will be familiar with. Kettlebell is being held just level with the sternum here. First thing you're going to do, I don't know if you saw it then or you missed it, we're going to blow the air out and create that intra-abdominal stability. Going to lock everything into place like this. We're going to have the feet just slightly out at maybe 11 and 1. We are going to have the hips looking to be directly over the heels, and we're just going to slide down and inhale into this ascension down to where you feel that you are keeping about a neutral upper spine. So we don't want to see any tuck of the hips in this position here. We're going to inhale into it and we're going to exhale out of it, pushing through here. And we're really going to think about the smoothest line and how that femur is moving in that hip joint. And we're just going to ingrain this pattern so we feel like we're getting an even connection through the midpoint of the heel, pushing the floor away, keeping pressure in the trunk and pushing off back to the top of the movement. I'll do maybe anywhere between 5 to 10, however you and many reps you feel fit. Go back onto the floor, do the previous drill where we're ingraining stability, taking the feet out to the side, in and out, and then going back into this goblet squat. If you want and if you have time, I'd be more than happy for you to do the banded glute work, then the lying hip drill, then the goblet squat. But in my opinion, if you want something which is bang for your buck and is going to ingrain a better co-contraction of the trunk muscles with the appendicular leg muscles, so basically the muscles such as the glute med, glute minor and adductors, I would go for the drill that you've just seen where you're lying on the back mixed in with this goblet squat, as I think that would get a much more better response when it comes to ingraining that squat pattern.